Welcome to the Women Who Change the World podcast, the place where everyday women world changers share their stories to inspire, challenge, and equip you to change your world.
Hi, this is Lori Miller. I'm coming to you today with excitement for our first ad, and here we are on Samantha's podcast. So thrilled. So to tell you a little bit about ourselves, we're a tea boutique company, mother and daughter, Victoria and myself, Lori. We're a team My Loyal Tea Company, might as well say that here. We have premium, organic, loose leaf tea. We want to get the toxins out of your bodies. We're very active on Instagram and Facebook at My Loyal Tea Company, LOYALTEA Company, all spelled out. And our website is myloyalteacompany.com. So come join the fun.
Hi, everybody. We are back with another episode of Women Who Change the World. And today I have Brianna Wilkerson. She has been a friend of mine for a couple of years. And I'm going to tell you something. If you are like me and you are struggling with your weight, she's got some news for you. Girl, she has got some news that can just make you take a sigh of relief. Today, we are going to talk about you are more than your weight. And Brianna is going to walk us through how it affects your mind, your body, your health as a whole, and creating new habits. How are you today, Brianna?
I'm doing well. Thank you. It's great to be here.
So I know your story, but why don't you tell the listeners what got you started on this whole all about my weight, losing weight, dealing with it all?
Yeah. So I think, I feel like most businesses these days led by women start from either a personal experience or personal conviction. And I think mine is both. So growing up in high school, just growing up as a young teenager, I guess I don't like to say I was overweight, but I definitely just wasn't concerned necessarily about my health or my body or my weight. But I was exposed to the fact that most of the women around me were concerned about it, right? And so I started playing sports, and naturally, as you started playing sports, you're just a little bit more concerned about what you eat because you want to fuel that, fuel your gain. And I started to lose weight. And with that, I also started to gain a lot of affirmation, and a lot of people just would comment and say, you're looking great and all that. And people meant well. Let's not say that that's a bad thing. But as a young teenage girl who's just like forming herself, we were just talking about hormones in teenage years. It's like I started to equate my worth or my feeling of belonging or attention to my weight. And so I fast forward a little bit to the middle of high school, or right at the beginning, where there was a huge hurricane that hit. I'm from the Cayman Islands, hit the Cayman Islands, just caused a lot of changes in my life, and changes that I didn't feel like I can control. So friends went away for school for a while. We were living with my grandparents for a while. And I just kind of went inward and said, what can I control in my life? And that was how much I ate and how much I exercised. And so I became obsessed with those. I barely ate, definitely not enough for any teenage girl or baby over 5 years old, probably. I exercised a lot, and I just got kind of skinnier and actually unhappier, right? Because it wasn't about the weight and it wasn't about food. It was about just what was going on the inside. And I just chose something external to kind of numb it instead of processing it. And luckily, I have really amazing people in my life that just were kind of concerned. Like they were like, you're just kind of you're not looking healthy for your body, which at the time I kind of got frustrated about, because I'm like, 1 minute you say I look great, and 1 minute you say I need to lose weight, and 1 minute you say I'm too skinny. But it was God's grace in my life, because it was really kind of a wake-up call. And I should have known that I needed to deal with something deeper when I went and saw the nutritionist that people recommended, and I just started crying. I think she was a little like, whoa, it's not about the food. And she actually recommended I see a child psychologist at the time just to talk through it. But I was like, no, it's fine. I'll gain weight. Everyone will be happy. And so I did gain weight, and I was kind of a good weight for my particular body structure, but I didn't deal with how I was using food to not process things. To the end of high school, I was up to be valedictorian, which I also started to find my worth in my work, how much I achieved and what I did. And I just felt the pressure. I got to make sure I'm valedictorian, got to make sure. And so I went to food for comfort. Actually, I did the opposite. And I allowed myself to eat a few foods I had ignored and avoided for years. And I just was like, this tastes so good. And I just kept eating it. And my brain knew, when you're stressed, this gives you comfort, so go ahead and eat it. And I gained back all that weight that I had lost. And I gained also a lot of shame. a lot of feelings of guilt, and just like I once had control, I no longer have control. And I was just like crying out to God, help me, help me, help me. And but I wasn't willing to kind of give up that feeling of using food also, again, to then numb the pain. So I started to see food as kind of a friend and a foe at the same time, rather than fuel. And my body, I had a very poor relationship with my body and my weight. And that's when I started going on the dieting yo-yo cycle, where it was like, let me try the new diet. Let me try the quick fix, because I want to take away these feelings I feel about myself or what I'm going through. And fast forward to college, where I was kind of still in the same pattern. It wasn't as bad, but I really started to reconnect with my faith in college, where I started to see for the first time, I did not just started to like know it in my mind, but also feel it in my heart, that God's love for me had nothing to do with my worth, with my weight, with my work, or with anything that I was finding my worth in. That it literally was just that he sent his son to die for me. Like, he loved me that much. And that broke me. It just broke me, the fact that I had been spending so much of my life trying to like be something that I already was already loved. I already belonged, and I was already worth it. But that it wasn't like instant, like I'm healed, like I no longer struggle. It was a journey. And I think that that's how it is for us all. But it was from that point that I made small, simple changes in my mind, in my words, and in my actions to show myself that I was more than my weight. And that just took a variety of forms. And eventually I got married and moved back home. And I felt like that's when the Lord really wanted to deal like with this. And he asked me, do you want to be made well? Made well is based off of John 5, and constant different stuff throughout scripture that's talking about made well. And it's the story of, there's this man sitting at the healing waters, and he goes to the man saying, hey, do you want to be made well? The man's like, there's no one to carry me in the water. He was just saying all these things, and literally the healer is right there. And he's just like, all right, take up your mat and walk, like just go, like be healed. And I felt like that was God's invitation to me, was just like, you keep saying why you can't be, but let me show you how you can. Let's do this journey together by caring about your mind, body, and soul. What are you thinking? And how are you acting? And like, are you growing spiritually? It's all so connected. We segment our lives, but it's actually, you can't do that. And through that process of just really taking small steps to really care for myself holistically, yes, I lost weight. I sustained that weight loss until I had my daughter 10 months ago, until I got pregnant with her. But it was so much more. I lost weight, but I gained a lot. I gained a lot more confidence. I gained a better relationship with food and myself and my body. And along the way, I just started to get this feeling like this wasn't just for me. You know, he's a God of comfort, so we can comfort others too. And I started a blog that wasn't good. It was just like out there, I'm going to help people with these, you know, knowing that you can eat real food and not have to feel deprived. And eventually I became a health coach, because I said, I actually want to do this. I had loved coaching women, even through ministry and women's study groups. And then, 5 years ago, I officially started my business. I didn't know what I was doing, but I just knew I had a heart to see women be made well and holistically. And it took a variety of forms and messaging and all that stuff, but it's been the same. I just really want to help women find peace with food, feel confident in their bodies again, and develop a healthy lifestyle that's more than about their weight. And yes, if you want to lose weight, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I just think so many of us women are finding our whole value in that number on that scale. And it's so much more, so much more. So that's me.
So your purpose, your calling really has to do with the pain that you felt and experienced.
Yeah.
That's something that I find, that women who are like, they figured out their purpose, it comes from a deep pain that they've walked through.
Yeah.
And I feel like God gives us that ability to help others so that we can heal through our pain as well.
Yeah.
So it becomes this give and take kind of relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So why are women obsessed with our weight? Is this from other women? Does this come from men who are visual? God made them visual. It's the way they are. The media? Is this something we do to ourselves, or is it kind of a mix of all of it?
It's definitely a mix of all of it. I mean, you look throughout even the history of dieting, like, well, first of all, let's say diets are just actually a normal way that you would eat in your culture and your family. But the diets that we know are the ones that are made to restrict for what? To see so we can change our body and how we look. And I mean, within the last 50, 60 years, I mean, how many diets are out there? And they're all with the intended marketing and purposes telling us we need to look a certain way. And so I think it's a variety of things. I think it's society creating one definition of beauty, and that has to do with something also on the scale. It also, health professionals will tend to tell you that a certain, like on average, like a certain number means you're healthy weight or overweight or obese, not taking into consideration that everyone's body structure is different, genetics is different, situation is different. Some of them might be on medication. It's just so many different things. And so you just have all of these external other women, men, society, even health industry are all saying this is the standard of beauty and health, and it has to do with a certain weight or tightness of your body or whatever. And so even if you try to override that, all the messages out there are trying to reinforce, let's say, the opposite to you. Mm-hmm. And so you just have to really, it becomes hard to say, like, if no one else believes this, I believe this to be true about myself, that I am more than my weight. And that's hard because, as you know, I some clients, like even family and friends, have said stuff to them. And these are people that love them, right?
Yeah.
That they don't know what they're doing is actually tearing us down. They think that they're being helpful. I don't know. Or maybe they don't care. But we're just, especially when you have loved ones, people who are supposed to uplift you, tell you opposite, it becomes hard for women to really believe this truth. And so, yeah, I think it's a variety of sources, and sometimes it's subtle, but sometimes it's very overt. And so we just have to constantly be asking ourselves, like, why? Like, so one of the free resources I offer is my Food Freedom Journal. And this just it's just a reflection saying, why, when did you first step on the scale? Why did you? What was your first reaction? What do you think about your weight now? Because sometimes we just don't know that, like, oh, it was that time I went to the doctor and he said, you're at a healthy weight. You're like, oh, okay, so I need to always be at this weight, or, oh, you're overweight.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I just think there's beliefs and thoughts that have been ingrained in us that we just don't know are driving our actions around our weight and our health.
For me, I remember in high school in PE, we had a male PE teacher. And I stepped on the scale. He goes, yeah, you're overweight, but the weight's all in the right places. I felt violated by that. Mm-hmm. It's like, you're a pervert. Go away. Mm-hmm. The next time I remember stepping on the scale was a doctor's visit when I was pregnant. I didn't go to the doctor very often because I wasn't a sickly person. Mm-hmm. And they commented about me being overweight. And it's like, yeah, I've been on birth control for 6 months. Before birth control, I was living around 135, 140. Mm-hmm. And at 5'8", not doing any active sports, that's pretty good. Mm-hmm. And I gained 100 pounds in 6 months on birth control. And they said, oh, no, that's impossible. And it's like, but it happened.
It's very possible.
And so my daughter is like, I'm not getting on birth control ever. I don't want to gain 100 pounds. But even my daughter, who is 21, at times she looks at herself, she's like, maybe I should. And I'm like, shut up. You are a size 2. Mm-hmm. Shut up. Mm-hmm. She's curvy where she's supposed to be. She doesn't eat as much as she should for a person who's constantly on the go and on her feet. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to tell my daughter she needs to lose weight. Mm-hmm. I told her if she wants to tone up her muscles, you go right ahead. That's good for you. Mm-hmm. But we are not going down this road of I am fat, because I have an 8-year-old. Mm-hmm. And she's at that chunky phase right before she really starts growing and developing all the girl parts and girl stuff. And so I've been very, very careful. Mm-hmm. Not just what I say, but talking to other people. Like, you shut up. Mm-hmm. Do not tell my little girl she's fat. Mm-hmm. Because it can start as early as that. Oh. If they start developing and you have people commenting about it. And I've even talked to her, said, the reason you're chunky is because you're getting ready to grow big. You're going to get tall and you're going to get all curvy like you're supposed to. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I tell her that. I've told my boys who chunked up, it's because you're getting ready to grow. It's because you're getting ready to grow. And not to have to be a mindset of you're fat. If you would just get off your lazy butt and do something, or if you would stop shoving this down your throat, because those are things that I heard from well-meaning, loving family members. Mm-hmm. And I'm struggling with my weight.
Right. Yeah. People. Yeah. And I think the interesting thing is that the more kids are starting diets at younger ages because of this, right? Where they're taught from a very young age, you need to look a certain way. And I think I love what you're doing is just affirming like, no, and I just think at the end of the day, it's like we have to continue to ask ourselves, why does this matter? Is it about health? Is it about well-being? Or is it about fitting into some standard that actually was never meant to be for everyone? Literally, if God created, all these different races, all these different, ethnicities and, people, and everyone looks different, right? But we want uniformity because we think we center on one thing, saying this is beautiful, this is right. In certain places like the Caribbean, being a little heavier set is a good thing. Like you get complimented on that. In some other places, it's like, no, it's bad, So I think it's just asking ourselves, like, people are going to change their expectation of us, even the same person. But there's one person that one human being, one omnipotent, all-powerful, all-knowing person that's not going to, and that's God. So we need to stand on some sort of truth that sometimes even is beyond us, because sometimes we're fickle with our feelings, right? And so that's one thing I love helping clients think through, is like, what is a truth that you can always say, believe, think, even when you don't feel it, right? We need to speak that truth, right?
It's that's something that I do with the clients that I work with. It's like, okay, what's truth?
Right.
Truth is scripture. What does truth say about God? God is unchanging.
Right.
So no matter what you feel, and sometimes they can go off on a tangent of emotions. We have them. They're there. They're valid. God has emotions. But you always have to bring it back to the truth, because if you don't, it's you've created a moving target. If I lose weight and I get down to 125 pounds, then I'll feel good about myself. Well, then I have sagging skin.
Right.
I have surgery, then I'll feel good about myself. And if I do this, it's a moving target that you're never going to hit.
Yeah.
So you mentioned shame earlier.
Yeah.
And I've read a few of Brené Brown's books where she talks about shame. Such powerful stuff there. But why is it that we have so much shame about how we look physically? It's like we don't care about who we are inside. The only thing that matters is your looks. Why?
Because we are affirmed based off of like our looks. Like, think about it. Like, we are affirmed. I believe people like to give compliments or affirm or praise things they see. Right. And maybe in some cases you have you ever had someone say, like, I don't know, like, really, I mean, there are amazing people out there who are really going to affirm your character. So the inside of you. Right. But a lot of people, we're kind of superficial. It's just like what we see on the outside. And so but going back to like these constant messages that are reaffirming our weight, if we're constantly being told that we need to look a certain way, we're like constantly looking for ways that, so Brené talks about shame, and basically shame has to do with not belonging and loss of connection and feeling like not enough. And so, and she even says this quote in one of her books. It's like, if you keep looking for that in the world, you're going to find that. There are tons of messages and people and things out there that are going to like affirm that belief. And the same thing is true though, on the opposite end. If I start to believe I am loved, I am worthy, I'm cared for just who I am, I'm actually going to see that coming true because I believe that, and I'm going to be able to see that. But if I believe that I'm ugly or my body is just, then I'm going to go on social media and I'm going to see someone and be like, I told you, she's all that you need to be. And so I'm going to believe that's true. I'm not worth something. And honestly, we say sometimes shame on you. Come on. They say, like, growing up, it's like shame on you. I'm like, nope, do not say that. No shame on anybody. So shame has to do with the fact that we're not enough, and guilt has to do with what we do. And so constantly the world is trying to say, you need to be better. You need to, yes, act better. And if you don't belong. You're not worth something. You don't have value. And because the world thrives on like having, it converges on one definition of success in multiple areas of life. In business, like if you're not making this amount of money with this amount of clients, you're doing a horrible job. Or so it applies multiple areas of our life too.
So your mindset, we've kind of been dancing around this.
Yeah.
But can your mindset prevent you from being healthy with food?
Absolutely, 100%. It can.
How?
So say, for example, I was on a call with someone about a year or two ago, and she was talking with me, and I basically started to listen to what she was saying and kind of not saying. And I asked her, do you actually believe that you can get to the weight that you want to be at and sustain it? And she's like, no, I don't. And I was like, so that's exactly why when you're going home at the end of a long day, you want to go home and cook a meal or even pick up a meal that you know is nutritious, but you're like, whatever, I'm just going to go get some fast food. Or that's why when, you haven't worked out in a couple of weeks, but you're like, I really want to start, but it doesn't matter because I'm never, in the back of your mind, you're saying, I'm never going to get to the weight that I want. Like, what's the point? And, and rightfully so, if you've tried for so long and you've been on the cycle, it's just hard to have hope. It's hard to believe things are possible. That's where faith comes in. I mean, God asks us to have faith in so many areas that sometimes I'm like, God, I need you to give me faith as small as a mustard seed because I do not believe this can change. And I was there too. So when I was on that cycle of overeating and emotional eating, I started to believe like, this is just who I am. I'm always going to struggle with food in this way, And that's when I started to challenge that belief, be like, will you? How is that helping you? Is that making you make the decisions you want and need to do? And so, yeah, I think what we believe to be true really does drive our thoughts, our actions, and our words, and our reality at the end of the day. So,
well, in that, you and I had a 90-minute call, and in that 90-minute call, one of the things that I got from it is prepping my meals.
Mm-hmm.
And so my family had burritos, and I didn't have the wrap, and I had the rice, and I had the chicken that I had cooked in the crock pot, and some cheese and tomatoes and lettuce and all these good things. I crumbled up a few chips on top of it just to give it a little bit of crunch. And I sat and ate it. And I felt full. And I felt satisfied because I got to eat the food that I wanted to eat. And I didn't feel guilty for eating it.
Yeah.
But it was just a slight change from what I would have eaten otherwise. And so that mindset shift, if I can have what I want, I might need to tweak it a little bit, has given me the freedom to enjoy my food instead of being obsessed. Do you find that your clients tend to be kind of obsessed with food and they don't realize it?
Yeah, I think a lot of the clients who were, especially in the beginning when I was just like, I can help you with whatever. I wasn't really necessarily niche down. I would come and honestly be looking for another quick fix around food or a particular plan. I'm like, I'm not going to plan your meals for you. I can give you some suggestions. I can give you some recipes, but I don't want this to just be another thing where you're going to, for 3 or 6 months that we're together, you're going to follow this. And then when you leave, you don't know how to eat on your own or intuitively eat what you're saying, guided based on what you want, but also what you need. And so, yeah, I think in the beginning, they feel like if I could just do this, if I could be better, if I could be more disciplined, this would all change. But the reality is diets in particular around food are not meant to help you be like, they're just meant to like help you reach a goal, not considering your life, not considering your emotions, not considering your desires. And so, intuitive eating is a really great book if people are interested. Like one of the first intuitive eating principles is like reject the diet mentality. You just need to see that diets aren't meant to actually help you succeed long term. They're meant to give you a short term solution, which honestly, there's a time and a place depending on health conditions, depending on, I'm not saying diets are bad, but most of us are going to it to fix our relationship with food, which it will not. We need to do what you're doing. And that's the harder and slower work where you're like, you know what, I'm going to have some rice. And because I really feel like I want rice, I need that little bit of extra, but maybe tomorrow I won't. Maybe I'm going to add something different, and being okay with that intuitive kind of eating or process is a little bit, it's hard.
Right.
Because it goes against everything you've ever done.
Right.
And people are telling you, and even me now, like postpartum, I would say I'm probably in that stage more than I've ever been. Because after I was like, I just kind of knew what I needed. It's like, I need grains. And I, for a long time, didn't eat much grains because it didn't really do well with me. I didn't really want it. But now I'm like, man, I need oatmeal every morning. Or I'm like, if I get that burrito, I'm getting rice on that, like, Because it's like, well, one, my body's actually like producing milk too, but also it's just because it's like in this season of life, like my mind is so stretched because of with the newborn. And I'm like, what do you need to nourish your body? Because it's actually doing a lot, even though you think you're like, oh, I'm not moving as much as I'm like, no, you're moving a lot. So what do you need?
Right.
And it takes a while to figure that out. And that's a process I like leading clients through. It's like, doing a food journal and just emotionally and mentally tracking also how you felt before, during, and after, because then you could start to see, oh, okay, I realize when this happens or when I have a really busy week, I just need easy, so yeah.
My oldest girl was a Irish step dancer when she was like 8, 9 years old. And so she was this thin little petite thing. It's kind of like she skipped the non-graceful part of us girls that we girls have growing up. And so she decided that she was overweight and she was going to become vegan. And so I told her coach, Audrey decided she's going to be vegan. She's refusing to eat meat, but she's drinking soft drinks. And her coach was a pure Irish redhead. The whole temper came out and she just let Audrey have it. She's like, you will eat meat. You need it for your muscles. You will not be drinking soft drinks. You will be doing this, this, and this. And she just kind of laid it out for her. And she was a little kid. And she didn't tell her anything differently than I did. But it came from her coach from a perspective of, look, you want to take care of your body. You want to do this. This is what you need. And I think sometimes, like when you and I were talking, I didn't realize that I wasn't nourishing my body. That my body was over there screaming, going, no, you need to eat these things. Because I had taken out all the appropriate things for a correct diet. And instead, I was starving myself. So can you talk a little bit about how nourishing your body not nourishing your body can actually prevent you?
Yeah.
And I know we're talking a lot about weight here, and you're more than your weight, but I think this all goes in with the mindset and taking care of your body.
It does. Yeah. At the end of the day, it's like, that mind, body, soul stuff. It's like, we can like get mentally well and in a good place, but you have to also practically take care of yourself. Right. So, and that's where the healthy habits part comes in the work I do. And the first one, the habit I really help women with is figuring out what's nourishing to their body. Yeah. At the end of the day too, I think your body needs a certain amount of nutrients to thrive and to function. And so macronutrients are the first thing I really think, water is one of the first things I think women need to focus on. But also macronutrients, carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And we've gone through so many diets that have, taken one out of the other, right? Like don't have protein, just have carbs and, fats, or just have protein and fats, or just have protein and carbs because fat is bad, carbs are bad, protein are bad. But at the end of our day, each one of those macronutrients, regardless of the source it comes from, has a part to play within our body. Protein builds our internal structures, not just your muscles. Carbohydrates give you energy and fuel, and fats also are a form of energy, but they transport nutrients in your body. And so, I had this other client that realized, okay, I'm actually eating too much protein and wasn't eating all the other ones, which actually historically, most women aren't eating enough protein, but we just tried to have more of a balance. And I don't try to get nitty gritty on like, counting the exact macro numbers. I think there's a time and place for that. But all of, let's say those three, your body, when you're just getting an array and a balance of that, it's happy. We were talking in our session when you had avocado, when you went and got a sandwich, it's like, you're like, this feels good because that's such a good fat that does so much for your body. And so that's one of the first things. It's like helping women figure out within those carbs, fat, and protein, which ones really do well for them. And so, yeah, we're talking about veganism or vegetarian. It's like, they're not going to eat animal protein, but there's still a lot of good whole food natural sources that you can get protein from. Right. So let's figure that out and do something and customize your nourishing plate is what I call it. But then there's micronutrients, like, you hear about vitamin C, vitamin K, minerals. That's a lot trickier for some people to navigate. But I really say at the end of the day, if you have a variety of colors, variety of textures, and you do take maybe a really good supplement, you should be okay. But for certain people with certain conditions, maybe they need to have one more than the other. So we look for those foods that have more vitamin D or folate or fiber and stuff like that. So that at the end of the day, I think salads are not the only way to get nourishing food. It's so funny. People think I actually don't eat a lot of salads. And if it's like a side dish, I do prepare. My typical plate has two types of veggies. It has a starchy carb and then maybe more of a grain. So like a sweet potato and like broccoli. And then it has a protein all of that is maybe cooked in a fat. And so that is just the way my plate is. And that's very nourishing, filling to me. Mm-hmm. But that may look very different to someone else. And so now you ask the question of, okay, well, what is the impact? If you're not getting the nutrients you want, you're going to start feeling symptoms that you may think is related to something else. So your hormones may not function the way they should, not just the female hormones, but your insulin, your cortisol levels, your leptin, your glycogen, like all of those play a role actually in your weight management. Yeah. And then you maybe just aren't having the energy you want. A lot of women are like, I'm fatigued and energetic. Well, it's like before looking for an external supplement, which I think there's a time and place, let's look at what you're eating and not eating and see if that's something that, so for you, when you had that avocado, it's like, I feel so good. It's like, all right, you need to be eating more avocado. Well, other people might hate avocado. So it's like, maybe you need to be eating more coconut products or whatever, right? So you start to feel a lot of the symptoms of, lack of energy, brain fog, variety of things. Your thyroid might not be working as planned when you're not nourishing yourself. So my advice is before you go to like kind of the medication is fine and supplements are fine, look at your plate. Your just consistency over time. What are you eating? What are you not eating? Maybe you need to add something in there or take something away.
Hey everyone, I know that we are just getting started into this episode, but I had to cut the podcast episode in half to make 2 episodes because it was just too good to edit anything out. Be on the lookout because part 2, I promise, is worth the wait.
Hi, this is Lori Miller. I'm coming to you today with excitement to our first ad, and here we are on Samantha's podcast. So thrilled. So to tell you a little bit about ourselves, we're a tea boutique company, mother and daughter, Victoria and myself, Lori. We're a team MadeWell tea company. Might as well say that here. We have premium, organic, loose leaf tea. We want to get the toxins out of your bodies. We're very active on Instagram and Facebook at MadeWell Tea Company, LOYALTEA Company, all spelled out. And our website is myloyaltycompany.com. So come join the fun.